circles going. I am starting the recording now so we can go. So I want you guys to think of this circle here as your familiar self, or some people call that your ego, okay? So you can write down whichever you would like to call it. I'm just going to write ego down. So your ego is the you that you would say, like, this is who I am, right? Before we go on, I want to give you guys an example of your ego. So I want everyone to put your hands out in front of you, okay? And I want you to put your hands together and then open them and put them together, open them and put them together. I'm sure as you guys do this, you'll notice that one of your thumbs always ends up on top, right? Okay, so now I want you guys to try, not until I say go. When I say go, I want you to try to do it again and put your other thumb on top, okay? So I'll give it a second until everyone's ready. Everyone get your hands ready. When I say go, I want you, like I said, to try to do it. All right? All right, so let's go. Try to put your other thumb on top. It's usually kind of awkward, like your hands will smash together, fingers will get tangled up. You're like, what the heck, right? Especially if you try to do it fast and try to get your other thumb on top. But if you try to do it the normal way, it's pretty smooth and seamless. So some of you might be a right thumb on topper, and some of you might be a left thumb on topper. But your parents never said to you when you were a kid, let's see. So Jen is saying that it's saying I will let her in, but I do not see a Jen on my list. Can somebody message Jen and tell her to like log out or like go off it and try to go back on it? But anyways, so your parents never sat you down and was like, honey, I just want to let you know you're a right thumber. Like, we're a right thumb family, right? Like your dad is a right thumber, your mom is a right thumber, your great grandpa's a right thumber. That's just a weird thing, and we don't do that, right? Well, the reason that we don't do that is because that's like an unconscious habit that's just built into us. We don't think about it, right? However, if you're a person who's always late, you might tell yourself, I'm always late. I'm never on time, right? You give yourself that label. If you're a person who always waits to the last minute, you might label yourself as a procrastinator. You might say, like, this is who I am. I'm a procrastinator because I always do it. Just like I'm always a right thumber, right? However, some of our habits or our patterns, right, that we live with and do, and so I still don't see Jen, just so everyone knows. But some of those things are just built into us from maybe something that when we were super little, or who knows what it was. They're just things. But your patterns don't necessarily, oh, here she is, I'm letting her in. Your patterns don't necessarily define you. And so if your patterns don't necessarily define you, that means that if we really, really wanted to, right, we could practice enough putting our, let's say your left thumb on top, whichever one is the opposite for you. You could practice enough and you could eventually probably turn that into your habit, right? If we really, really wanted to. So I want you guys to first know and make yourself a little note that you are not your patterns. Even though you might say, like, yep, I'm a procrastinator because I always do that, or yep, I'm always late, or yep, I'm a right thumber. That doesn't mean that that's who you are. What that means is that's just your patterns. So this ego self over here, right, is the exact opposite of our true self. Okay, so I want you guys to write on the line for the next circle. I want you to write true self. Okay, so you have your ego self, or the person that you tell yourself that you are every day. Then you have your true self, right? Now, what's the difference between these two? So if you're a believer, I want you to think of it this way. Your true self is who God thinks you are and who God tells you that you are. And your ego self is just who you tell you are. Like, I'm pretty sure if you talk to God and you're like, oh, I'm a right thumber, like, I mean, you know, if we're really family, you got to be a right thumber too. And he'd probably laugh at us, right? He'd be like, who decided that? Like, what are you even doing, right? So in a second is where I'm going to want you guys to unmute yourselves because I'm going to want you to call out some things to me and I'm going to write them down. But your ego self is the familiar part of you that you say, this is who I am. So you might say, like, I'm lazy. You might say, I'm fat. You might say, I'm a procrastinator. You might say, like, I'm always riding the struggle bus. I'm always running behind. I can't keep up with things. Like, what are all those things that are just your normal patterns, right? That we say to ourselves, because I know we all do it. So I'll call on you one at a time so it doesn't get too loud. But let's start with you, Cass. If you want to unmute yourself, tell me 2 or 3 things that you label yourself as and you think this is just who I am. Like this is my pattern.
Gosh, I have a lot. No.
No, it's hard and it's but just throw them out there. Like, what do you tell yourself? Do you tell yourself you're a procrastinator or you're lazy or you make bad decisions? Like, just throw a couple things out at me because we all have that negative crap.
I tell myself far too often that I'm a failure
Okay.
and that I have a broken picker.
Okay. Good. What else? One more.
And that I'm unlovable.
Okay. Now you can remute yourself. Let's go with Jasmine if you feel up to it. If you don't have to. So you can just tell me no. But if you feel up to it, give me 3 things that you tell yourself, like, this is who I am. I know. Just trust me.
Why? People don't need to know I'm crazy.
Okay, so crazy. We're writing crazy down. What else do you got?
I got a bad picker too.
Okay, so we'll go that's my bad picker. What else have we got? Let's do one more.
Not good enough.
Okay, perfect. All right, Rebecca, let's go with you. Tell me 3 things that you tell yourself. And you just, this is who you are.
I'm lazy.
Okay, what else do we got?
I'm a procrastinator.
Okay, what else?
I'm fat.
Okay. All right, who else can I pick on Whitley?
I'm unorganized.
Okay.
I'm a hot mess mom
Okay.
and scatterbrained.
Okay. Perfect. And Jen, I know you're new, but if you feel like joining in, I would love for you to unmute yourself and tell us 3 things if you feel like it, but you don't have to.
I'm not good enough.
Okay. What else do you got, Jen?
I'm not worthy
Okay, one more.
and I can't do it.
Okay, perfect. All right, ladies. So if we look at this circle and all of this stuff, this is who we think we are. We think that we're failures. We think we have bad pickers. We're crazy. We're lazy. We procrastinate. We're fat. We're unlovable. We're not good enough. We're unorganized. We're hot mess moms. We're scatterbrained. We're not good enough. We're not worthy and we can't do it. Now, I know that I personally have thought all of those thoughts more than once, right? And we probably all have thought those things at least once, if not more. But now I want you guys to think about your true self, okay? Which, like I said, if you're a believer, the easiest way for me to explain it, because I am, is it's who God says you are. So I'm going to start with Whitley. Tell me just one thing that God says you are.
I am worthy.
Okay, perfect. All right, Rebecca, tell me one thing.
I'm beautiful.
Okay, perfect. Jasmine, tell me one thing that's actually true about you, even if you don't believe it, that you know is the truth.
I don't know.
How about you're a hard worker? I know that about you, right?
I try.
You are. So we're putting that down since you're difficult. Okay. Jen, you want to tell me one thing that you know is true about you, even if you don't believe it?
I am good enough.
Okay, perfect. And Cass, tell me one thing.
I'm strong.
Perfect. All right. So first of all, guys, I want you to think of it like these are two separate women. We have this lady over here who's crazy and fat and lazy and a hot mess. And then we have this worthy, beautiful, hard worker who's good enough and strong. Okay? Now, what is it that decides which one of those women we show up as every single day? There's three things that combine together that decide that for us. They are our patterns, okay? That's the first one here, our patterns. So if you're a right thumber or a left thumber, Jen, I know you missed this, but if you put your hands out and you clasp them a bunch of times, you'll always have the same thumb land on top, right? So we could say that that's a pattern that defines you. You're either a right thumber or a left thumber, okay? So just so you know what we're talking about. The middle thing is our identity. Sorry, I have bad handwriting, guys, just so you know. And then this last one is our decisions. So our patterns are the things that we do without thinking about it, okay? So what things do you guys do that you don't even have to think about? I know for me, for an example, every time I take a shower, after I dry off, I wrap my hair up in the towel and I dry out my ears with a Q-tip. Even if my ears aren't dirty, I just do it. It's a pattern. I do it every single time without fail. And if we, for some reason, are out of Q-tips, it drives me crazy because I can't do my pattern, right? And so I would easily be able to say, like, that's who I am. I'm a person who has to Q-tip my ears every single day, right? But just because my pattern is doing that thing, right? Then that makes me think my identity is this. So if your pattern is putting your right thumb on top, then you're probably going to say that your identity is that you're a right thumber if you put your right thumb on top, right? And so then we make decisions all the time, guys, based on our patterns and our identity. The decisions that we make based on our patterns and our identity are what decides who shows up, okay? So your identity is who you think you are. Who we think we are is this person over here. I want you all to think of a name that you're going to give your person. You don't have to share it with me, but I named mine Gretchen. I don't like Gretchen. If I had to hang out with Gretchen, she seems kind of like a drag, right? She's lazy and she's fat and she probably complains a lot and she's unhappy. And I mean, I wouldn't want to invite her to my birthday party, right? But then I want you guys to give yourselves a name for your true self, okay? So it can be your favorite girl name that you never named one of your kids, or the name that you wish your mom had given you, or Sunshine, Sparkle, Rainbow, if that's what sounds good to you. But I want you to name your ego self, and I want you to name your true self. And then I want you guys to think to yourselves, right, in your lives, when you're going about your relationship, if you're in one, when you're dealing with your kids or your job or Plexus or me or each other as a team, is Gretchen showing up or is Sparkle, Sunshine, Rainbow showing up? And I want you guys to ask yourself that because it's kind of funny, but it can really help you to be like, oh, when I start telling myself I'm crazy, right? That is a pattern. And that pattern tells me who I think I am. And then I make decisions because our brains will always make decisions to try to stay true to our identity. So if I tell myself in my head, well, whatever, I'm crazy anyways, so that's a normal thing for me to do, then my identity is I'm crazy. And then I'm going to make decisions that make it true that I'm crazy because our brains want to stay true to our own identity. So the flip side of that, guys, is if we can interrupt these patterns, if we can be like, no more, I'm going to start noticing when I talk to myself like that, right? I'm going to start noticing when I'm putting that right thumb on top, and I'm going to slow myself down, and I'm going to go really careful, and I'm going to put the left thumb on top, and I'm going to put that left thumb on top until that becomes my normal, even if it takes me a really long time. So what that looks like, guys, is the moment that I'm not good enough thought pops into your head, I want you to be like, Gretchen, get out of here. I told you I don't want to hang out with you anymore. I'm good enough, right? That isn't me anymore. Because the moment that you start doing that, that's going to start changing your identity. So when you're interrupting your normal pattern, it'll start changing your identity, and it'll start to help you make different decisions. The reason that that's so important for everything is this, guys. In this business, we get told no a lot. You also have people talk to you like you're crazy a lot. You have people misunderstand you. You have people get offended. You have people block you. You have people call you a scam. You have people say, oh, you never really cared about me. You just think I'm secretly fat. And you're like, what? Like, I'm bigger than you. What are you talking about? Right? That's going to happen. If we take in those things and add them to this already huge filled up circle of negative self-talk, we're going to start telling ourselves in our business, I'm not good enough. I'm lazy. I'm a procrastinator. If you're a procrastinator, you're probably not waking up in the morning and getting your work done right away, so it's just out of the way and you can go about. You're going to be at 9:30 at night being like, well, of course I didn't send my messages today because I'm a procrastinator. So I have to do this pattern again and again and make decisions that keep me true to my identity. So guys, just like we can choose to change our patterns, we can choose to make different decisions that also affect our identity. And I want each of you to know, and I know that this might seem a little bit harsh, but this is the absolute truth of it. We're all girls here, so we are grown A women. We are adults, right? The only person who gets to decide who we are is us. So when you're like, I'm not good enough, I'm crazy, I'm fat, I'm a procrastinator, I can't do it, who decided that crap? You did. I did. Even if someone else tells us that, like, I want you to think of it this way. If Gretchen could just show up and she's banging on your window and she's like, you're fat and you're crazy and you're lazy and you're a procrastinator, and she's doing all of that, you would probably shut your blinds, call the police, and be like, oh my gosh, come haul this chick away, right? We wouldn't be like, oh, Gretchen, you're right. I am all of those things. We wouldn't do that. So why do we do that to ourselves? Why do we talk to ourselves like that? And why do we say all these things to ourselves and then believe it? Why do we do that? We literally have the choice, guys. And I know that it's hard to think of it that way, but all of this negative self-talk and all of these things that we deal with, we're literally choosing it every single day that we wake up and we're like, oh, well, of course I slept past my alarm because I'm lazy. That's us telling ourselves that. Why are we talking worse to ourselves than we would to our friends? If one of you called me up and was like, Justina, I'm so lazy, blah, 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 I can't do this. I want, let's say, Cass, unmute yourself. What would I say to you if you were like, Justina, I just can't do this. I'm too lazy and I'm a procrastinator and I'm a bad picker and I don't pick the right people to send messages to and I just can't. What do you think I'd say back to you?
You'd probably tell me I'm full of beans.
I
And
would.
send me a smack meme emoji.
Right, right, exactly. So if I would be like, dude, you're crazy. You know that none of that's true. You're awesome and you can do this and blah, blah, blah. And that person just isn't ready or whatever it is, right? Why do we take better care of each other than we do our own selves? Why do we set the bar for each other on the ground where you could like roll over it? You ain't even got to get up. But for ourselves, we have it way up here above our heads. And we're trying to achieve this thing that the only reason we're not achieving it is because we keep telling ourselves that we're all of these things. Okay? So the lesson in this is, guys, who we are as human beings, we will do anything to be true to our identity. Proof of this is like, let's say somebody calls you, since we're all girls, let's say someone calls you a slut. And you're like, I haven't even had sex in 2 years. How am I a slut? Right? You know that that's not true, but it really, really hurts your feelings and it really bothers you. And the reason that it bothers you so much is because somebody has identified you, right, as something that you are not. And then you'll probably be like, this is just not good. Like, I need to prove that this is not me. And so you'll call up your friends and be like, did you hear what this person said about me? So that your friends are like, oh, right? Because we need to be confirmed that that's not our identity, because that's not an identity that we want. And it feels icky to us, right? The reason that's true is because we want to feel like we are our identity. But guys, if we're doing all this over here, if we're being Gretchen, if we're showing up in our lives as Gretchen to ourselves, then we're going to do things and say things. We're going to make decisions and we're going to engage in patterns that prove to us that this is who we are. Or we can choose to make different decisions and interrupt those patterns and prove to ourselves that this is who we are. And I listened to this really cool thing today, and it said this: you might think, right, that you're putting certain beliefs out there. Like, let's say you're saying affirmations every day, which I'm sure I've told all of you to do at least at one point. And you're like, oh, I'm a diamond. Whatever, I said it. Just, be happy I said it. But that's how you feel about it, right? Or you're like, I'm a freaking diamond, okay? I am. I'm sure of it. Those are two very different things. Which one do you think your body is going to be like, oh, yeah, we like that. Screw Gretchen, right? I'm sparkle, sunshine, diamond, rainbow. Like, yeah, I'm a diamond, okay? Think about which one of those we're going to respond better to. Think about which one feels better to say, okay? So this thing that I listened to this morning, it was really, really cool because he said this. You might say, oh, I'm trying really, really hard at my job. I'm trying hard. But if you're saying, I'm trying hard, even though you have good intentions and you mean that you're trying hard, the truth of that is that you actually believe that you have to try hard in order to succeed. Hear that again. If you're saying, oh, I'm trying so hard, it means that you believe that it is a hard thing to do. It means that you believe it has to be hard. So think about that. If we say, I know I'm good at what I do, and I know I'm going to help somebody today, and I know I'm going to change somebody's life today, and I'm going to do it because I'm good at it, and I can, and I've been through it, and I've tried the things, and I know that it works, and I'm seeing the fruits of my labor, right? Nowhere in there do we have to say, I'm going to try to do it. I'm going to try to send extra messages, or I'm going to, try to do a live, or, no, don't try. I want you guys to decide for yourselves which version of you want to be. And I want you guys to claim it as if it's real. I don't want you guys to be going around thinking, well, man, I'm trying so hard and I'm just not seeing this situation get better. When in fact, the reason you're not seeing it get better is because the way that you're talking to yourself proves that you think you have to try so hard. Whether that's your job, whether that's your marriage or a relationship with your children, or just to clean the kitchen every night, whatever it is, if you're like, I'm trying hard, like I'm trying to do my best, that means that we think it's hard to do our best. And if we think it's hard to do our best, that's our identity. So we will participate in patterns and we will make decisions that make that identity that it is a hard thing to do your best. And you'll make it true for yourself every single time. But ladies, if you on the flip side start saying, you know what? My job's easy. All I have to do is tell people how I can help them, and then I get to help them. And real talk, guys, that's an easy thing to do if you think of it like that. Now, maybe making a sale, that might be hard. But are you making sales or are you helping people? Are you trying to convince someone that this is what they need? Or are you saying, hey, I have the solution to your problem, right? Like if somebody says, oh, I fell down and scraped my knee, and you say, here, I have a Band-Aid. That's easy, right? It's easy to do because you have the Band-Aid, you've used a Band-Aid before, you know that a Band-Aid works, and their knee's bleeding. So here's a Band-Aid, right? That is what we are doing in this business. Whether a person is having financial trouble, whether a person wants to stay home with their baby, whether a person has migraines or they're overweight or they're diabetic or whatever it is, we are literally just saying, here is the thing to help you. Now, are you going to have people that act like a toddler sometime and scream and slap that Band-Aid out of your hand because it's not blue and they only use blue Band-Aids? Yes, you will. Okay. But that's not about you. That's about them. And so don't you start saying, oh, well, if I wouldn't have procrastinated and I wasn't so lazy and I wasn't such a hot mess and whatever else, they would have used my Band-Aid. You are worthy. You are good enough. You are a hard worker. You're beautiful. And guess what? You have a Band-Aid. And that's what this is. Okay. So does anybody have any questions before we are done? And if not, that's okay. But if you have something that you'd like to say or you have a question, now is the time.
I don't have a question, but I just want to say thank you. This is really good. And I think it's like super important work for all of us to be doing because we are diamonds. Darn it. We are.
We are 100%, 100% diamonds, ladies. And I want you to think of it like this, so our diamond, which is like our royal tree in Plexus, her name is Jamie Haskin, for those of you that don't know. Jamie Haskin had 90 Facebook friends when she started Plexus. 90. Jamie also, sorry, one second, something popped up. Jamie also lives in a very, very tiny town. It's called Falmouth, Michigan, and they literally have a blinking light and a gas station, and that's it. So it's not like she had a huge, bunch of classmates she went to school with or a big following or anything like that. Okay. And she is a diamond. And she has a re-entry account where I think she's like up to like Ruby or something like that. So she's getting diamond money and her second account is getting Ruby money. And she has a couple of jewels under her. So she's probably making about $80,000 a month. And she started with 90 Facebook friends, guys. Most of us are starting off with a bigger network than that. Most of us had more classmates than that we went to school with. Most of us know more people than that. So if somebody from such a super, super tiny town, and I forgot to mention that Jamie was a person who like really did not like people, okay? Which some of us I know were like, people-y, but she didn't. And so she had like one or two friends from church and that was really it. Like she didn't, she just didn't. If she can grow that much, guys, to literally diamond, there's absolutely no excuse for any of us. And the only reason that we won't get there is if we continue to show up as Gretchen or whoever you name your ego as. So really fast before we end this, because it's about to cut me off, I want you guys every single day, like starting literally right now, as soon as you're done with me here and the next person that you talk to or the next message that you send or the next interaction you have, I want you to take a deep breath first and ask yourself, am I Gretchen in this moment, in this interaction, in this whatever? Or am I Rainbow, Sparkle, Diamond, whatever your good name is that you like, that makes you laugh? Who am I going to show up as? And if I'm showing up as this, what patterns do I have to do and what decisions do I have to make that true? And when you find yourself falling back into that old stuff, guys, stop yourself, close the blinds, call the police and have them haul Gretchen away because you're done. Okay? All right. I love you all. And I will put up the recording for you guys to watch later if you want.